Welcome back to ModCons. Today I am joined by the broadcaster extraordinaire, the commentator of Britain, the man who knows how to, make the case for conservatism, but be fair, firm but fair, I call him. He is Albie Amankona. He is an icon on the radio, on the TV. Albie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jamila, I need to hire you as my hype woman. I feel like that's the kind of intro I need every morning to get me
Exactly.
raring to go out of bed when I got to get up very early. So thank you for the introduction. I'm thrilled to be here.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So today it's a Friday. Obviously, this goes out on a Monday, but we are now actually competing right now with Andy Burnham, who is doing a Reddit right this moment, an AMA, Ask Me Anything.
I mean, Reddit, what's that all about? I mean, who even uses Reddit? I know people use Reddit, but Reddit sort of comes up when I type in questions into Google. It might be like, I don't know, and I always get these things. It's like how many years do I have to stop smoking for it to no longer harm my young lungs? And Reddit will be the thing that comes up. So I'm just not really sure about the forum. The
Mm,
reason why he's doing it is because of when he did his speech last Monday, which was meant to be an economic speech, but it was very light on economics. He was
mm.
talking about devolution, really, most of it. He didn't take any questions
Yes.
from journalists. And so I think this Reddit opportunity, if you will, I think is a response to that. And instead of journalists, he's going to let the public
Yeah.
ask him any old question. So I think it's a bit gimmicky. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of cute. It's a bit social media-y. Some people might think it's cool. I don't think a politician has done this before, so it's interesting. A politician utilizing social media.
Mm.
Nigel Farage does it very well,
Yeah.
but I think it's in direct response to the criticism he got for not taking questions from the press last Monday at his speech in Manchester.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Kemi's already entered the chat. She's sent him a Reddit that she wants him to answer why, like you said, won't he take any questions from the press, who are obviously trained to ask him the questions on behalf of the British public. And I think like you say, it's cute, it's fun. He's trying to show that he's down with the people. His whole campaign has been very social, very digital, very like I am the new type of politician in the kind of same speed as Farage and Polanski and all of that.
Exactly. And
So
I think the
yeah,
way that we have to look at it as people broadly supportive of the Conservative Party and of Kemi is that, well, if Kemi did this, what would we think? And
yeah,
we'd probably be praising it. We'd probably be like, oh, this is a really innovative way to get to the public. I
yeah,
suppose the difference is Kemi would never purposefully not answer questions from the
yes,
press after making a big economic speech. Kemi would never do that. Whereas what Andy's done is he's got a whole load of criticism, and in response to that criticism,
yeah.
he's decided to go on Reddit. So I think that's the difference between Andy and Kemi. Reddit is fine, but
Mm.
also answer questions from journalists as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And obviously with Reddit, you don't have to, they're not coming at you. You know which
Yeah,
question to pick. So it's not really that open and it's not that democratic, really.
no.
So, apart from questions from the public, there have been questions from parliamentarians this week, PMQs. Keir Starmer was still fighting, making the case for his fantastic record that was only cut short to 2 years, but for no apparent reason, it just happened to be the time he wanted to stand down. Nothing to see here. Do you agree?
Look, I mean, Keir Starmer's record, bless him. He said in a very sort of, I don't know, he sent sort of like a little deer in the headlights saying, I've left the country in a better position than I did when I took it on 2 years ago. And I don't think that is right at all. Look, economic growth wasn't great under the Conservatives, but it's not much better under Labour. Taxes are higher, all right. Immigration has come down. Net migration figures have come down for legal migration, but small boat crossings are still extremely high. You've
Yeah.
got the defence issue that Keir Starmer hasn't really solved properly, even though we are now spending more money on defence than we were spending under the Conservatives. We're not spending nearly enough
Yeah.
on defence. And I think in terms of whether or not the country is more or less divided than it was in summer 2024, I feel like the country is more divided.
Yeah.
So I don't really think there are many metrics by which Keir Starmer can claim that he's left the country in a better position than he found it in under Rishi Sunak.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think the gaslighting continues. He started as the chief gaslighter and he ends as the chief gaslighter. He spins his own yarn, let's just put it that way. He likes to create a narrative and just insist that that's the truth, even though nobody else sees that. But is it weird that he keeps making announcements? Because I feel like the moment you say I'm resigning and I'm standing down, you probably don't have the authority to actually make any policy changes or say you're going to do anything because you're not going to be there to do it. And like in the case of the defense investment plan, he hasn't even bothered funding it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what all these announcements are about. To be honest, when he was making announcements after May the 7th, I was kind of just thinking to myself, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah, after
doing?
May. Yeah.
What's the point? Why are you here standing here talking about a social media ban? Fine, you can agree with that, you can disagree with it, as if you're even going to be in power next spring when it
Yeah.
comes into force.
I
It's
know.
nonsense, it's farcical. So this whole thing about him continuing to make announcements, it's just a bit silly. Keir,
Yeah.
just hang it up.
Yeah, give it a rest, give it a rest. And obviously, when we go out, the England would have already won the football. But obviously,
Obviously.
he's extending licenses for the football match. What are your thoughts on this? I feel like I don't know. Is that where his priorities should lie? And does it just go to show that he actually does know how to push things forward and push things through when it's something he actually cares about, but not when it's anything else or anything more serious?
I don't know if that's entirely fair. I think the World Cup game being on at this particular time is a pretty special case. Sure, probably could have been thought about a little bit earlier because
Yeah.
we've known that we were going to be playing this match against Mexico at this time for some weeks now. Well,
Mm.
since last week when we drew, well, 2 weeks ago now when we drew with Ghana, and I'm half Ghanaian and half English, so I was thrilled with the result. The result could not have been better
Oh,
from
good.
my perspective. A 0-0 draw. I mean, what more could a half English, half Ghanaian man want? But I think it's probably something that could have been arranged maybe quietly
Mm,
directly after that match and then
yeah,
just announced without there sort of being this public pressure and then Keir Starmer caving in. I
that's
think that is actually more symbolic of his
yeah,
premiership, which is there are very obvious things that should be done.
mm,
There's a public outcry about it, and then he eventually does them. And
yeah,
then people don't remember that he's done it. People remember that they waited to do the obvious thing. I
mm,
think that is what this symbolizes.
yeah. Agree. That's literally him in a nutshell, isn't it? Doesn't have a plan. And obviously, Morgan McSweeney said that this week. He spoke to Nick Robinson for his podcast, and it was a really good like scoop. I was really impressed that he'd actually got Morgan McSweeney to sit down and really dissect. But I felt like he was trying to be the victim in all of this, and he was suddenly a wallflower, and I was a bit confused because I thought you were the villain. I just couldn't quite
Yeah,
wasn't
didn't he
quite buying it.
say Mandelson? Didn't he say something like Mandelson was really quite harmful? When wasn't it Morgan McSweeney's idea to hire
Yeah,
Mandelson? I just found the whole thing a little bit bizarre. Obviously,
yeah,
look, I find these interviews with ex special advisors really interesting. I actually
mm,
have a lot of time for Dominic Cummings, for example.
yeah,
I have a lot of time for Morgan McSweeney. These are really clever people. They got their respective leaders into power, and they did really help to drive a program, even if it wasn't that successful in the end for Boris Johnson or for Keir Starmer.
mm,
They kind of got these reputations for ridicule, but they are two very successful men in the political world in their own right. So I'm always interested to hear from them,
yeah.
even if some of the things they say, I sort of think, well, why are you saying that? Wasn't this your idea?
Yeah, yeah. And okay, now you've mentioned Dominic Cummings. Who would you say is the most successful, like Alistair Campbell type? Would you say Alistair Campbell? Would you say Morgan McSweeney or Dominic Cummings? Who's the legend?
I think Alistair Campbell's the most successful one.
Yeah.
You just on tenure alone,
Yeah, true,
um,
true.
he's the most successful one. And in terms of the success of the prime minister
Yeah,
that he served, Blair won 3 elections in a row.
true.
Boris won one, Keir won one. They were both defenestrated in
Yeah.
scandal and got replaced by another leader mid-term.
True, true. And it's so funny because I always watch the thick of it. And I absolutely love Malcolm Tucker. But then every time I remember that it's like Alistair Campbell, I do get slightly upset because Malcolm Tucker's so much cooler than Alistair Campbell. Alistair Campbell's always he's so grouchy. He's got such a chip on his shoulder. I don't know why.
Do you know, I met Alistair at a summer public relations party a couple of weeks ago, and I actually think he's an interesting guy. Obviously,
Really?
he's Alistair Campbell, like everyone
Yeah.
knows who he is. He's sort of a Westminster legend. Obviously, runs that hugely successful competitor to this podcast.
Indeed.
With Rory Stewart. I'm not quite sure if he still calls himself a conservative nowadays, but he certainly used to
Yeah.
be back in the day. So
Mm.
he's an interesting guy. He still has quite a lot of influence, and he still generates quite a lot of attention.
Yeah, yeah, he does. He does. And he's been tweeting to Andy Burnham saying, "Don't worry, you don't need to be held up to scrutiny," when all the media were kind of having a go at
Yeah,
him.
I heard that. I saw that, and I thought, Alistair, you would not have allowed Tony Blair to make that decision that Andy Burnham made. Maybe Andy Burnham should get Alistair Campbell back in because we're
Maybe.
hearing that he wants to get all of these Blairites back in.
Yeah.
I think I read something earlier today that Ed Balls might return to government, but as a member of the House of Lords. But of course, that would make Yvette Cooper Lady Balls.
Amazing. Amazing. I think he should do it just for that reason.
Exactly. It would be hilarious. Just everyone calling Yvette Cooper Lady Bull
Lady
all the
Balls.
time.
But what would his thing be? So, like, obviously, they've said David Miliband, Foreign Secretary. I kind of get that, even though he hasn't been in the country for about a decade, but fine. Ed Balls, what is he going to be? The Chancellor from the Lords? What's his
Who
purpose?
knows? Who knows? Maybe he would be a senior minister in the Treasury, something like
Yeah,
that. Some sort of senior ministerial role. Maybe not actually a Secretary of State,
mm,
but the House of Lords can be used as a tool to bring in outside expertise where it's needed.
yeah,
I actually think the Labour government have done a decent job of that, bringing in people like Lord Timpson, for
yeah,
example, to lead the reform around prisons and justice. I actually thought that was quite a good move. The
yeah,
Conservatives obviously did it when Rishi Sunak brought David Cameron, Lord Cameron,
yeah,
back into government as Foreign Secretary. So I'm not opposed to this sort of thing happening, but I do think it has to make sense,
yeah.
and I'm not sure where Ed Balls fits at the moment. But I do like it just to be able to call Yvette Cooper Lady
Lady
Balls. I think
Balls.
it's such a funny
It
juxtaposition. Lady Balls.
would be good. But does it not? And I ask this question every week, does it not say so much about, I don't know, the top of the Labour Party's thoughts of their own on their own cohort? Does it not?
Mm.
I don't know. Does it not say a lot about the regard in which they hold their own MPs that they don't think there's any talent
Well, maybe there isn't any talent there, Jamila.
there? Maybe.
Maybe they understand what we understand.
Yeah, maybe.
You know.
Yeah, maybe
I
they're
like it when
smarter than
people
we
agree.
think.
I like it when people agree with me, and maybe Labour does.
Yeah, exactly. Funny thing that McSweeney also said, which made me think that this guy was so unprepared for government, that he said, it was really stressful after, being elected, and it would have been really good if we had like a transition period, like a week off, because obviously the election was so intense and you have to go straight into government. And I just thought, Margaret Thatcher wasn't complaining that she needed a holiday. You just get to it. Surely that's the role. What do you think everyone else has had to do?
Yeah, that did seem pretty odd to me. One thing I do know about Nick, though, is he's an expert interviewer,
Mm,
and I've been interviewed by him, and he is able to get human feelings out of people that he interviews, and I think that's
right.
something he did in that moment,
Mm,
which I thought was quite revealing. So
yeah.
Morgan McSweeney told us how he was feeling as a person, not
Mm.
like we won this election, we won this big majority, isn't this so great? We're going to change the country. Nick Robinson got him to say, I was fucking tired, and I could have really done with a break after the election, but we had a country to run, which I think are quite interesting insights for the public,
Yeah.
to be honest. So yes, it's odd, but I do like being reminded that these people in politics are people sometimes,
Yeah.
and I'm sure if you and I were ever in that position, we might say that privately to each other.
Privately.
We'd never be stupid enough to tell Nick Robinson that in
Yeah,
front of the entire BBC audience of me.
exactly that. So obviously we've seen a lot of news about lots of things that have been going on, but the Treasury is in the news at the moment, not just because it has to find lots of money to fund the Defence Investment Plan and the ever-growing welfare bill, but apparently now, because of a Freedom of Information request, a journalist has discovered that the Treasury have been relaxing the maths and all the other tests because they were too hard. And they cite that the reason for this is because they want it to be ethnically diverse. Do you
Mm.
have a problem with things like this? Because does it just make people resent anyone else who they see in a space and think, oh, you only got here because of a quota? Does it actually do more harm than good, these kind of things?
Camilla, I find this kind of diversity stuff actually quite insulting as a
Yes.
black person. You
Yeah.
and I are black.
Yes.
We can do maths. I don't
We
need
can count.
someone to dumb down a numerical reasoning test
Mm,
for a job in the treasury for me to get it. If I don't need someone to dumb down a numerical
yes.
reasoning test for me to get a job somewhere. If I
Yeah.
can't pass a numerical reasoning test for a job in the Treasury, I
Mm.
don't deserve a job in the Treasury. Maybe I deserve a job in the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, something like that. And do you know what? That'd probably be
Yeah,
more
or something
fun than the Treasury.
else.
But ultimately, we need the best of the best in the
Yes.
Treasury. We shouldn't really care what the color of their people, what the color of their skin is. We
Yes.
should just care whether or not they're able to do the job. I would have thought numerical reasoning was quite an important skill to have if you were going to work with
Yeah.
the Chancellor and the Chief Secretary to the Treasury and all of those other people that work with percentages and decimal points and maths and all of that sort of thing that you need to
Pythagoras.
understand. That you need to understand accounts, and they're running the biggest
Indeed.
accounts in the country. So yeah, I want them to have numerical
Yeah.
reasoning.
Yeah. And it is baffling that is probably the one department where you would think we can't get away with this. Like obviously elsewhere it's still not a good thing, but the Treasury, come
But
on.
you must have also found that insulting.
Yeah, I do because I think it just I think it sets the wrong tone because then when people see other people in spaces, they then question why they're there. And I think
Yeah,
if it's judged on merit alone, then I know that you're there because you're the best, and you know I'm here because I'm the best. And I think that's the best way
exactly.
to have, integration. And I don't know, I think for us to be united as a country, you've got to know that people are there because they deserve to be there, not because they're ticking a box and your best friend can't be there because they're there and girl, I hate them kind of thing.
100%. And some people are good at maths, other people are good at drawing, other people are good
Yeah.
at running, other people are good at swimming. We don't all have to be good at everything.
Yeah.
And I think this idea that we should lower standards so we can have a more diverse whatever
Mm.
is stupid.
Yeah.
We should just be going on merit. And
Yeah.
if we want to be encouraging people from different backgrounds, underrepresented backgrounds, to apply for roles on the same level as everyone else, that is a completely different thing. I'm all for those types
Yes.
of
Yes.
diversity schemes, which are encouraging people to get involved. Things like Women to Win, or things
Yeah.
like LGBT conservatives, things like the 2022 group, things like Conservative Friends of India, Conservative Friends of
Yes.
Israel. Those sorts of affiliate organizations are about widening participation,
Mm.
not bringing standards down
Yeah.
for the sake of diversity.
Yeah. That's it. I think it's just making sure that we're not leveling down. We're trying to
No,
bring everyone
level
up.
up, to
Level
coin a
up.
phrase.
Yeah. Poor Boris. Poor Boris. So apparently Boris is on maneuvers. Have you heard anything, Albie? Any scoops
I
from
have heard rumors about it, and I have heard that that a journalist was out with someone senior from Reform and mentioned the word Boris, and apparently the reformer that they were with all of a sudden changed their complete demeanor. So
him?
Boris is still scaring people in the Reform Party.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, I just think Boris should just, his Daily Mail columns are entertaining,
Yeah.
and I think he should stick to that.
Yeah. What do you
I know
think? You
you
have another
liked
go?
Boris though.
I'm a
You liked
Boris. I
him.
love Boris. I love a bit of Boris. I'll
He
never
was he,
deny
he wasn't good. What did he do?
leveling up. He
Yeah,
didn't quite finish it though.
level up on migration. That's what he
Oh,
did.
don't. So
Get
what
to
do you
nearly
think
a
he
million.
don't?
Yeah, level up on migration, level up on tax,
Don't.
level up on benefits. Yeah, I'm not about Boris. I'm not a
The
Borisite,
thing
I'm
I liked
afraid.
about Boris is, and I'm going to get loads of hate stuff for this, is because I found him a very positive voice
Bit
in
like Andy Burnham in that way, I
a
think.
little. They do have
I
similarities.
think they're
Maybe
similar. I do
Mm,
think they are similar.
they
And
are.
I think the last cool prime minister we had was Boris,
Yes.
and the next cool prime minister we will have is Andy Burnham. And
Yes.
there is something to be said for coolness, I think.
Yes. Is it a mayor thing? Or,
Maybe.
or is it a career politician thing that they're just good at shape shifting?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think it's a bit of both.
So maybe James Cleverly, in 10 years, if he becomes London mayor, he'll be trying to come back and say, Kemi, it's my turn. I want to be
Yeah, I've got a bone to pick with James Cleverly, actually.
what?
He was meant to come and speak at an LGBT Conservatives event
Oh,
last week, our summer barbecue, and he didn't
okay.
turn up. The cheeky
Oh
bugger
God,
didn't tell us until 9 o'clock. So then
no.
I had to give the speech, and I
Bless
made a
him.
joke. I made a joke about being the mixed race Conservative in the room that everyone wasn't expecting to see because the taller one was stuck somewhere and couldn't come anymore. So, James, if you're listening.
Oh God. Oh,
Not
sorry,
not
Dave.
impressed. But
I'm
I
so
was I was
sorry.
very happy to be your understudy, but it would be nice for to hear you speak
You are
at the
good. You would be a
LGBT
good
Conservatives
understudy.
at some time soon.
Well, I think now he's heard this, he will have to come to your next event. If you have a summer
100%.
party, maybe he can.
Well, we had our summer barbecue.
Oh gosh, sorry.
Yeah. But it's okay. We still love you, James. We still
Still
love
love
you, James.
James. So are you
Just
thinking James?
win London
Yes,
back to Sadiq Khan and all will be forgiven.
that was my question. Are you team James for London Mayor?
Look, I like James, but
Yeah.
I also know other people who want to become the mayor of London,
Yes.
and I like them and I'm friends with them as well.
Mm,
So what I would say is may the best man or woman win, but no one
indeed.
set out their stall to me just yet.
Yes.
James is great. The other people I know are great,
Yes.
and we'll have to see who the best person is. But I just want the candidate who is going to get Sadiq Khan out of City
Yes.
Hall.
Yeah, we do need to get him out. I think because especially if Andy Burnham is going to be Mr. Devolution, we can't leave London in the hands of like an incompetent mayor, which we have at the moment.
No,
Him having more power is a very, very scary and dangerous thing for London. Um,
100%.
so yeah, I agree with you on that. I am, I like both of the candidates that you might have in mind. But talking of James Cleverly, he was at the Onward CPS launch of this great Fixing London housing report, which was quite bleak reading, but there is some hope, I think. The thing that they said, which wasn't shocking and won't be shocking to either of us, is that the average house in London isn't affordable for anyone, and whatever their pay packet.
Really?
And the only way
I
people
didn't
can,
know that.
yes, the only way people can
No,
buy
no,
in
I'm
London.
joking,
Oh,
Jamila. I'm joking.
sorry, that's right. Going in my head. Yes, the only way you can buy is with inherited wealth now, and that's the only way.
Yeah,
They said the top 10% can buy like the worst 10% of London stock, but that's about it.
which is mad.
Yeah,
Which is mad. You're
crazy.
kind of walking past these two up, two down terrace houses that were made for not millionaires,
Mm,
and they're being sold for £1 million.
yeah.
One of the things that I find hilarious, I think you can always sort of judge a country's housing market by the types of houses that celebrities are posing out of and
Mm,
then posting on Instagram. And
yeah.
you sort of see, I don't know, I think I saw one of the singers from Miss Dynamite posing outside a two up, two down in Clapham or something. I'm sorry, a terraced house that looks like that is not something a celebrity should be posing outside of, for crying out loud.
Maybe it was
So
her
if
house.
if for the well, maybe if for the celebrities alone, we need to sort out the housing
Yeah.
crisis so that when they're posting their pictures on Instagram, we've all got something to be a bit more amazed by.
Well, when I lived in KNC in Kensington and Chelsea, you every time you come out your door, you've got like an influencer on your doorstep. You're like, this is not convenient. Could you please move? They're just
Well, exactly.
photo shoots all the time.
They probably just got off the Jubilee line from
Yeah,
Harlesden.
that's the thing. People do travel in this, which is a problem as well because you're selling a lie to your followers. They're all
Yeah.
think that, being an influencer has given you all this money that you live in wherever. And actually, you've just jumped on a tube or a train. You've got a suitcase full of different clothes that you're going to change into. Yeah, it's kind of, I guess it sums up social media really. But
But that being said, even in places that you just mentioned, Kensington and Chelsea there,
mm,
but even in areas of London which are not as desirable as Kensington and Chelsea, these pretty basic homes are going for five, six, 700,
yes,
even a
yes,
million pounds.
yes.
So when that is happening, you just really understand the scale of this housing crisis that we have, particularly in London, but not just in London,
No.
across the country as well. And we really do need to solve it.
Yes, which is why I think Andy Burnham might be playing a bit of a dangerous game because he's kind of presenting what he's trying to backtrack now, but he is kind of presenting anyone in the South as like a billionaire, kind of making all the money, and we've got to push it back into the North. And there are a lot of people in London and the Southeast, the Southwest, who are, struggling in equal measure and, paying a lot more for their houses, paying a lot more for their trains and still earning not the equivalent to anyone else outside of those regions. So he might need a bit more. I don't know. He says everyone needs to come up to the north to gain a new perspective. He might need to come down to the south a bit more.
Yeah, this whole anti-Westminster bubble thing
Mm,
is it's getting a bit boring. I
yeah,
wonder when Labour will get bored of it. And these gimmicks don't last unless people see meaningful change. And you can
yeah.
talk a good game as much as you like, but if people are not feeling better off
Mm,
under Andy Burnham in 12 months' time, I
yeah,
expect him to be just as unpopular as Keir Starmer.
yeah. But they can't get rid of him because they don't want to be the Tories.
Well,
Um,
no, exactly. And to be
no.
honest, I know there's all of this talk about a general election, but I think it would be bad for the Conservatives for us to have a general election as quickly as possible. I think we need to wait until 2029. Then I think Kemi will do really well.
Yeah.
But I think if there's one in the next 12 months, I think the Tories might lose seats.
Yeah, I don't think we'd lose them, but I don't think we'd gain as many as you say we would in
Mm,
2029 for sure. Because I think
yeah.
that because obviously Kemi's the most popular leader, that just gives her more time to even, to grow
To do
and
her thing,
to
that the
do her
party's
thing.
not quite caught up with the greatness of the leader.
Mm,
And I know it will, but there just needs to be more time, I
yeah,
think. There just
yeah,
needs to be more time. So what I'm hoping for is, a full well the rest of the term to be full under Andy Burnham and then a general election in 2029 and Prime Minister Kemi Badenoch.
here, let's do that. And so one of the other things, obviously, with Burnham, he's got lots of London Labour MPs that he does need to try and keep sweet. And back on the housing stuff, they mention in it that birth rates are down by 20% because people are just can't afford to have families, they can't afford to move out or move up or whatever it is. Do you think that is a big problem with our generation? We're just not, having kids. And should we care? Should we just leave it to Gen Z or should we be, trying to catch up?
Of course, it's a problem. Of
Mm,
course, it's a problem. And you also have the phenomenon of primary schools closing
yeah.
in inner city London because of the same problem. And the thing is, when it comes to people having children in London, is it's not necessarily that yes, people are having fewer children, but the other problem is that when people are having children, they're moving out of London because they
Yes.
can't afford to have children
Mm,
in London. So then you've got the double problem of this, the birth rate falling because people are having fewer children, but then also people leaving London once they're having children because it's
yeah.
just too expensive to raise a family here. So you've got that double whammy in London, and that is probably responsible for that dystopian fertility
Yes.
rate drop of 20%
Yeah.
in London. So there's a double problem there. And ultimately, if we do not have children at the rate of replacement and we have an aging population and a shrinking labour force, that means over time, with age-related entitlement spending, so things like pensions, things like the
Mm,
NHS, for example, that means that a larger tax burden falls on fewer workers, which
yeah.
means higher taxes on working people, which is fundamentally not something that we as conservatives believe in. So
No.
we need to be making having children something which is easier for people. But I don't think it's just an economic question, actually.
Mm,
I think it's a cultural one. I think for a long time, children, having families, perhaps not putting your career first has been seen as unworthy, not
yeah.
important,
Yeah.
um, almost something to be looked down upon when actually we don't want to end up like Japan or South Korea.
Mm. Yeah, it's something we should treasure. And I think you're right. It's probably been drilled into us to be quite career focused, or we grew up in that era where everyone was like trying to, I guess it was like late 80s, early 90s, people were trying to make their way in the world and be successful. And I guess we've grown up with those role models that that's what we think success is. And I think we've forgotten about the 2.4 children element of it
Well,
all.
for sure. But then at the same time, I was born in 1994. I'm 32 now. By the time my parents are my age, they'd had three children.
Yeah.
So, you know, w- yes, they had that work ethic, but they
Mm.
also had children at the same time. Part
Yes.
of that is economic. It was obviously a lot cheaper to have children back then. But yeah, you can be ambitious in your career and have children. I think, our parents' generation got that right. Maybe our lot have just got one half of it right and sort of forgotten about the other.
Yes, maybe. I do wonder whether, as millennials, we've been like I don't know, not infantilized, but maybe things were slightly delayed because of not the pandemic, the recession, and it kind of pushed us back a little bit, and we're just about
Well,
catching.
I feel like recession and pandemic for me.
Yeah,
I'm kind of a younger millennial on the
you
cusp of
are. Sorry, I'm
millennial
such
and
a
Gen Z.
granny.
So, yeah, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I feel like it's 2020, and
Yeah.
then I just don't know where the last 6 years has gone. But it's
Oh,
gone, and we're
gone.
all 6 years older,
There we go.
and we've got to crack on and get on with it.
We do, we do. Albie, well, thank you so much. Anything else of the week that's kind of struck you that you're thinking, oh God, I need to really get this off my chest?
Well, we're back in a heat wave, aren't we?
Yes, we
So
are.
all I would say is I wrote an article in the City AM
Love it.
last week about how we need to ignore the eco doomsters and embrace Mediterranean Britain. And look, if we all just had aircon, we'd all be much happier, wouldn't we? So let's just get rid of whatever those planning laws are that stop us from having aircon,
Yes.
and let us blast beautiful, cool air
Oh,
into our
yes.
homes so we can enjoy the heat outside, but
Mm.
then come inside for some respite.
Yeah. So
That
you,
would be my final thought.
I love that. Pro climate change, pro.
Not pro climate change, not pro climate change, but accepting that climate change has happened and we need to
Yes.
adapt to it rather than try and stop it. Even if we stop pumping out carbon tomorrow, we'd stop 1% of global emissions, and that would do sweet Fanny Adams because China, India, and the US are still pumping lots of it up into the sky. So let's embrace the heat, but also adapt for it so that we can thrive.
Agree, agree, agree. And also, I was at a policy thing recently, and they said that if our energy, obviously, we all know our energy costs are huge, but that is the one way that we can really, really grow the economy is trying to get cheap energy by drilling, baby drilling. So I am now a convert, and I do believe in
Drill,
drill, baby drill.
frack, build, cool, heat, do it all. Do it
Perfect.
all. Camilla, it's been so lovely
Thank you,
to
Albie.
see you. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And everyone have a great week. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.